Welcome to Rooted and Rising, a soulful podcast hosted by Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone. Join the conversation as Dr. Cheri and Ellice explore the transformative power of holistic healing from the inside out. Together, they guide listeners through the deep work of reconnecting with their roots, uncovering the unconscious wounds that shape us, and rising into the fullness of our higher selves. So please, welcome the hosts of Rooted and Rising, Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone.
Welcome. Welcome to Rooted and Rising. I'm here with my co-host, Ellice Boone. And, as we step into this new year, I want to begin. Welcome, Ellice. I wanted to see your beautiful face. And I'm so excited about this new year. And as I was starting to say, as we welcome into this new year, I'd like us to take a moment and just pause. Life is so fast and moving. So as we take this pause, find where you're sitting and kind of center into your body. And wherever you go, let's just take a breath. You'll let your shoulders drop and soft. Let your body arrive. This year, my philosophy is to be embodied. We're human beings, and if we could just be embodied. So just be in your body. This episode isn't about rushing. We want to take a moment and enter the new year with meaning. It's meant for us to walk into being who we really are. So I would like to ask you a question, and I'd like you to think for a moment and honestly reflect. What if starting anew doesn't mean you have to fix something, especially yourself? What if it's actually arriving and choosing yourself?
Mhm.
Talk about beginning again on our healing path, past the holidays and the hustle and bustle, even of the new year, and all those New Year resolutions that we create. They're wonderful. And for some people tell me they don't even make them because they don't like them. And all that is a great to-do list and motivator for others. But as we take a detour a little bit, stop, ground ourselves, our feet on the ground, and pick our healing path, not from force, not from shame, not from a to-do list, but from intention,
Mhm.
clarity, and love.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Cheri. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Rooted and Rising. This is our first podcast of the new year. I'm feeling a little rusty. We've had a little break. But really, yeah, here we are doing this podcast again because what we're trying to do with Rooted and Rising is to share all of the different healing modalities that are available to us, to each of us, and to talk about how it's not necessarily about perfection or performance, but it's about grounding yourself into who you really are. And once you really can do that grounding into who you are, not putting any parts of yourself aside, but truly embracing all parts of you, then you can rise. You can rise into the best version of yourself, into the version of yourself that you're wanting to become. So that's our goal in this podcast. And I think this is 11 or 12 that we've done. So we've shared a lot so far regarding different types of medicine work, different types of therapies, alternative modalities, lots of journaling prompts, lots of small meditations and practices. And our hope is that you all can take something away from each of the podcasts and something away from today that will lift your spirit just a bit and also ground you into who you are. So Dr. Cheri, today we're kind of talking about, you mentioned New Year's resolutions, and I tend to hate that we call this a new year even because we're still in the middle of winter, right? And we want to almost be, everyone's talking about new year, new you, be reborn. And yet we're supposed to, as human creatures, just like the animals, sort of be in a time of rest and sort of be a little slower and building our energy for the spring. And so for me, I like to think about the New Year's resolutions in a little bit of a softer way, setting the goals and intentions that you'll be carrying forward when that spring energy kind of comes to life. And I think that you had a similar sort of impression of this. I wanted to ask you a question because I think a lot of people make New Year's resolutions and they get really gung ho. And then maybe they're not attainable, maybe just life gets in the way, but they feel like they fail. So it's almost like they start the new year out with a failure. What do you tell maybe your clients if they feel like they're trying to begin again, they're trying to create anew, but they feel like they're just starting the new year off failing? Do you have any advice for our listeners?
Yeah, that's a great question. They say statistics show that the average person, they'll a New Year's resolution lasts for like the first 6 weeks. Why 6 weeks? 6 weeks seems to be off, and maybe that's coming into spring. You talk about winter. Maybe that's coming into spring, and we kind of go against the natural clock of winter, and then we kind of flail, and I don't know. And so what I share with people is that to remember that healing is not linear. Healing is not necessarily starting new, but and it does from like ground zero. It's a journey, and we take, you talk about parts. In the therapy world, in the IFS is we have all these different parts: internal family, we have our external family, but we also have our life events are parts. And so that means every insight, every breakdown, every cherished experience, every joy, every moment of our survival and our celebration that we've lived over this past years, decades, come with us, and nothing is wasted. I really believe that every experience is a teacher, and sometimes we don't treat it that way, and we don't necessarily learn from it because we choose, whether aware of it or not to learn. We're not at the capacity to learn from it yet. But if we get curious and we embrace every experience as a teacher, then we can, and not reject our past, then we have the potential to rise. Because the rising is about integrating, and we've talked in the medicine work. That's the one thing that being introduced into the medicine work and getting all the certification work, programs I've gone through, all the people I've talked to, facilitators as well as students, that medicine introduced integration in a different way than I've in my career, and it opened a Pandora's box of joyous learning and growing. And so starting anew means honoring what shaped us, um, what challenged us, choosing differently, with more awareness, because that's the one greatest power we have is our free will and our power of choice. No other animal creature has the power of choice that we have. And so starting again, is not erasing the past, but it's carrying it with a wisdom. And if I had to say the one thing that the medicine work brings us is that awareness of our wise soul and that inner intelligence that we carry.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so, so true. Thanks for tying in the medicine work with this because I feel like many people are interested in this, and we've had some listeners say that they want to know more and hear more about this work. And we talked on the phone a little earlier today about how integration with the medicine work is just as important as the experience itself. So, whatever tool or modality therapies that you're using, you have to remember that there's so much more to it than just a therapy session or going on a medicine journey or getting a ketamine treatment. There's so much underlying as far as patterning in our brains and accepting all the parts of ourselves before we can truly change patterns and grow. So I also really enjoyed how you talked a little bit about the blueprint. Is it the healing blueprint? And I was curious, it seems like the healing blueprint is a much more intentional way of looking at things. And you walk your clients through this. Can you describe that a little bit more? How is that different from just setting like a New Year's resolution or having an experience and just moving on from there?
Yes, I like to think of each of us as, we all have our own blueprint, and maybe we've come to this earth with a purpose, a mission. Maybe we have, we have goals are just beyond the to-do list. It's the blueprint is a being, when we can sit down and say, okay, honor our individuality and how we impact the collective, and our and the community that we've picked or we desire to go to. We can map all that out. Then it's not about productivity. It's more about sustainability, stability, and growth, and really rooting in, really for a reawakening. I think that this is so much about us is not like, okay, I've got to figure myself out and learn something new. And a lot of times it's about tapping in to what we already know. That inner intelligence is a real thing. And so the blueprint is set to reawaken what already is. And sometimes that is the blueprint that the traditions that we brought with us from our families, even ancestors, our ethnicity, our religion, our culture. And so it's like honoring all that is an aspect. And so we begin with reflection, and then as we kind of get our feet grounded and reawaken, okay, I am, and then we can tap into rejuvenating, and that really deals with one, the inner family system, the yin and the yang, the male, the female aspect of ourself for our whole self, as well as our community. Mm-hmm. So, and we need balance between the individual and the community. And so we revisit how do I show up in that arena, and who am I, and our purpose starts to percolate. Mm-hmm. And then we can start with the renewing, and that's really heart-centered. And I don't, the tools that we use is to inspire the intelligence inside to like, okay, where do I want to go? Because the reality is we have free will, we have free choice, but we also overall as human beings individually, we're pretty darn stubborn, and we can go to therapy for years and we're good. And if we don't open up to that stubbornness, what's that stubbornness aspect of probably on the survival aspect, we won't renew. And so as a therapist is to be a presence, a witness as you discover that. Mm-hmm. And then once that's discovered, we can use our voice and we can talk about it, and we can journal about it, and we can share about it. And then that truth starts to manifest. And then we remember, the wisdom starts to come in and restore what we already know, that we remember, oh, I know more than I know. And that is so esteem building. That is so comforting, because now the real purpose comes in. Like, I deserve to take up space. I deserve to breathe in this world. I matter, and it doesn't matter where we are in this earth. And so then that opens us up to inspiration. Now we're open to the help that was always there for us. Because my personal belief, if you go in a spiritual realm, is we're never alone. But we close ourselves off because we don't start with the rooting. So you asked a question, I gave you a long answer and intentionally, but I think that is kind of the blueprint map I kind of follow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So just to sort of summarize, it's really finding the wholeness of people and what their purpose is. That felt like a key point, what their purpose is. And it's beautiful how you do it, because you allow them to find it. So you're asking the right questions, you're giving them reflections to find their purpose. And then that blueprint considers all the parts of their life to take into consideration, to put that integration into those parts of their life in a very holistic way. So that's really beautiful. I think we have to jump into a commercial break, but after this, we have lots more to say.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Hi, welcome back to Rooted and Rising. Today we are talking about New Year's resolutions, but creating more of a blueprint for our healing and becoming a new version of ourselves, rather than just pushing ourselves into things that will quite possibly fail because they're challenging or unattainable. So we had some good points before the break about the blueprint and how you allow your clients to come to the realization of what their purpose is, and then all the ways of all the parts of their life that are going to support them in their healing. So how to kind of customize something to fit all parts of them and all parts of their lives. That was really insightful. Dr. Cheri, I had another question. I notice you use this word sometimes. You say becoming, but instead of saying becoming, you say becoming. And I know there's something more to that. There's something behind there. Can you share with us?
Yes, again, that probably goes back to us being in a really go do world. And doing is great, but in that process, we can forget how to be.
Mm.
And until we are, then we aren't living life. And so I want to bring people back into, ground them into being who they are. And a lot of times that requires becoming, because the being is so foreign to them. They've been doing from the get-go. I have people tell me, they can remember almost when they started walking, they just ran and they just never stopped running. And so being in their own skin, being in their own body is a new phenomenon, also pretty uncomfortable. And so even though it can also sound like it's not about, like, when we're trying to get to a goal, we're trying to arrive somewhere. Being is not about arriving. It's about discovery and unfolding. This is where we find truly the power of love that we carry and the joy that we have the capacity to have, as well as to manifest. And joy is something we just can't chase. And love isn't something that we earn. As we experience that a sense of safety, and we experience what our truth is, the blueprint, and then the compassion percolates, and the three become aligned. And so when they become aligned, when our safety, our truth, and our compassion becomes aligned, the joy is experienced. And the joy is an energy in our body. And what that does, it calms the nervous system down. It becomes rest. And the joy just naturally rises. And with joy comes that capacity to love more. It's all about not forcing or doing. It's about remembering.
Thank you. That is different than what I actually expected you to say, so I'm glad I asked. I think that what really stands out to me is to just be is not an action. Like we get so caught in these action steps. We've got to take action. We got to check off the list. We got to be a better person. But this is a being that is stillness, that is presence. And that is a completely, like you said, it can be uncomfortable to just be in our own bodies, to exist with just our own thoughts. That can be a really uncomfortable space if you're not used to it. And yet, that's where so much of the work is really done, in that stillness, in that presence of just being with yourself. So I love that. It's almost like an alternate to diving into the new year. It's like being with the new year, being with this version of you in the new year.
And this can be work, because working with people with trauma, and this is where the medicine work comes in, because being is usually the opposite of feeling safe for people with trauma. If you feel betrayed by your body, if you feel betrayed by being visible in the world, if you feel betrayed in your community, or hurt, or you have been the betrayer, then we kind of, doing is an escape. And then we stop and we try to get rooted. It's not only maybe foreign, but it could feel like an enemy. And so part of the blueprint work then comes into walking towards that. Everything is a process. There is no, like we talked about at the beginning, we bring everything from the previous, every aspect of our life with us, and we just embrace the journey. No one has to be today until they're safe, right? And so we do the work to be safe, and then we remember, and as we remember, we get clarity of how even the trauma can hopefully someday be a teacher. And not, the joy and the love or the being can someday override the negativity, the negative impact of the trauma. And so I just want to say that, because sometimes people say, I can't be, that's a bunch of bunk, because that is not, it doesn't feel safe. And I don't want to deny that too, that experience as well. But, and that's just where it's this information about, okay, I just need to work through this trauma more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for honoring people who might be struggling in that trauma and needing more support around just being, and that's okay too.
Yes.
It can be a process, and one that takes a lot of courage as well. So just speaking to anyone who feels that way, you're not alone. That is something that many people experience, and it's part of the work. So keep it up, keep trying, and get the support you need to be in that space. Yeah. Okay. And then, going into sort of this idea that, the striving and the pushing forward. And you said in one of your parts about forcing, that it's not about forcing. And I feel like, a lot of the New Year's resolutions and things like this are based around discipline and willpower. And while those are really wonderful things, if we don't feel safety in our body, if we don't feel connected to ourselves, if we don't know what our purpose is, because those are the starting places where we're rooting in, then we can't really achieve sustainability, like you mentioned. So I think that you kind of have a different idea around the discipline, the willpower, or let's say being empowered. How do you see that as being different, like this empowerment piece? How can we empower ourselves, but in a way that feels more true?
That's a great question. And at the top of my head, as you shared this, I went back to the word reawaken. This is why we start in our rooting, to reawaken. We a lot of times talk about doing grounding work. Go outside for the rooting and stand on bare feet on the ground. It's to reawaken us, and to, as well as to stabilize us. And do the mountain pose when I do trauma yoga, and people just, and that's the standing pose, and you just root all four of your feet, your parts of your feet into the ground, and you wiggle your toes and you plant them, and your shoulders are back and your arms are down, and you can feel your spinal cord just lengthen, and your chin is straight forward, and you can feel this power cord kind of top of your forehead, top of your crown. That is giving you a position where you become conscious. Is being conscious, and as we and that's where stillness can begin. And again, some people will find they can do that for 1 second, and then that's all they can tolerate, and it's just information where the nervous system is right now, and that is right now, not forever. And but as we're able to do that, then we can even have little mantras that we share, and it could be something like, I listen to my body, and then we listen. I respect my limits. And we can even put our hand on our heart and just, yeah, this is good enough. A lot of times, we strive and we think, what is good enough? Right now is good enough. What is good enough? We don't have to use our imagination and make something more out of it in a lot of ways. And we can honor a pace that honors our healing. And that can even be a mantra. I move at a pace that honors my healing, something like that. We talked about across the 10 episodes, right? The last podcast that we reviewed, that was, we learned about strength without intuition becoming control. And intuition without strength becomes stagnation. So we want to find that balance, and that goes back into the rejuvenation of yin and yang. We can balance, and as we work the balance together, then we're empowered, and the empowerment just comes. We don't have to I'm going to be empowered, because it's not a force. It's a self-trust, and then the self-trust takes action. It just
yeah, so beautiful,
blossoming open.
Yeah, and I think that self-trust is a vital piece. I think that trust with ourself comes, in my opinion, from my own experience and with clients, from listening to ourselves, stopping to listen, listen to our hearts, listen to our bodies, listen to all the parts of us that have something to say. When we repress any of those things, they'll come out sideways, they'll come out in different areas. So embracing and taking the time to really deeply listen to ourselves is super important. And I think, like you said, then the empowerment, it shows up naturally, which is a beautiful side effect. I think we have another break, but we have some more to do when we get back.
Yes. See you in a moment.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Yeah. Hi, welcome back to Rooted and Rising. We've been talking and reflecting on, the new year and how to embrace this new year and what that could possibly look like. And maybe come from a different place, come from resting, pausing, reflecting, and waking up. And what that can really allow us the capacity to become more than we think we are, and do it all on the path of joy and love that percolates within us always, even though our monkey brain, tends to want to create chaos and even gravitate towards negativity, especially when it's about who we are. And as we discover that we can create our own blueprint, we can be masters of our own destination, and we can do it by stopping, pausing, resting, and remembering, the outcome could be miraculous and even surprise ourselves. So that is our, hopefully that we can make this year come. And so welcome back again. And I would love to hear, Ellice, your reflections on some of these things. And if there is, I want to put you on the spot. And if there's if there's anything that you could share personally, how being has impacted you.
Yes, absolutely. I am a busy person. I'm a person who likes to go fast, often in life. And so I think that's possibly a societal thing. It's possibly from how I grew up and just genetics, just who I am, my personality. And so being, for me, stopping and being really present and slowing down was at first really hard. And the reason was I felt a lot of guilt around it. If I stopped for even a moment, I felt like I was being lazy. If I stopped for a moment, I felt, if I wasn't doing so many things on my social calendar, even, I felt like I was alone. So it's been a long process that has happened in, I'd say, layers over many years, that I've gotten to be really comfortable being with myself, just being on my own. And the benefits of it are, my nervous system is in a completely different place than it ever has been throughout my life. I was constantly in fight or flight, and I didn't even realize it. And these days, because I feel more regulated, I guess you could call it, or just at a more even keel place, because I take so many moments to pause and reflect. I take moments to journal, to meditate, to get in touch with myself. I'm a little bit more aware when my nervous system gets heightened, when I feel, jacked up on, whatever the situation is or whatever's going on in my life, and I can address it. And I can take steps to sort of calm my nervous system, soothe whatever parts of me are speaking in that moment, whether that's from trauma or a situation that's happening, presently. So for me, it's given me a massively improved quality of life, being able to be present and be with myself. But as you mentioned and brought up before, it's happened in stages, and it's happened over a long period of time, just slowly chipping away, being with myself for longer periods of time, and really checking in with myself. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. And it's endearing. So I appreciate you sharing that. And it causes me to think a little bit about, my journey. And I recognize that I'm a very much doer as well. And so I've had to, the things I teach, I've had to do and learn along the way. And so this was not something, experientially, it's manifested over time. And I, came from this training of setting goals, and I became a Bob Proctor fan. I saw him on stage when I was 16, and he set goals, and so I set goals, and it kind of launched this, pattern of being a doer. And it's really great. Like I said, with doing, we accomplish our goals, and we succeed, and it gives us energy. So this is not one is better than the other, but when we want to heal and we want to change our evolve in towards our purpose, then we need to be. And so recognizing that, I didn't recognize that until I had some really good, strong functional coping mechanisms that supported me in doing. And one of the biggest one is denial of trauma. And so there were some traumatic events that I just bucked up and walked straight forward. I've been a good cop because I could just buck up and keep going. And but I recognized, as I started being, I allowed myself to breathe into those experiences and live those experiences. And so I'm just saying, I want to share that with people, because a lot of us, when we think we got it together, because we do have it together, we may need the being, the becoming more than anybody, and not know that we even, like you said, you didn't know you're going. And it is a process. It is a lay of shedding skin, like a snake, shedding skin, anew all the time. And that's why I say not just wake up, but reawaken, because we need to do this process over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing your personal experience too. We all are unique, and yet we have so much in common. We are all going through
Exactly.
our own shedding of layers, from whether that's social conditioning or traumas. But it's beautiful to see that the journey continues and we can continue to become the best versions of ourselves. And I don't want to say the best version. I mean, something about that doesn't feel resonant, but to become the most authentic, the most integrous version of ourselves, and that there's nothing that can do that better than time and persistence in touching in with yourself.
Very much so. Very much so. Yes.
Well, I think it might be a good transition into just taking a moment to guide listeners into like a small practice, if that feels good.
I love it.
Okay, so I think I had something kind of written down, but I think we're going to veer just a little bit, because what I'd love listeners to get in touch with here is how simple it is to get in touch with ourselves, to take a moment to just be. So as always, we want to start in a place, if possible, that you are alone and feel comfortable and can be private for just a few moments. And if it feels comfortable for you, to go ahead and close your eyes. And first off, as always, we want to get in touch with our breath, the thing that gives us life, the thing that happens automatically every moment of our lives. We want to rest our awareness there and just notice what our breath feels like in our body. If it feels good, to place a hand over the heart and perhaps one on the belly, and feel the rise of the chest as you inhale. And fully breathe out through the mouth, feeling the belly compress. And at your own pace here, take a few more deep breaths, focusing only on inhaling through the nose, getting all the breath, holding for just a moment at the top of the breath, and then a slow, long exhale through the mouth. And again, at that pace, perhaps trying to deepen on the inhale a little bit more, or hold at the top just a bit longer. And then allowing that breath to release through the mouth slowly, steadily, until you're fully empty. And here you can let the breath come back to its normal pacing. And notice just what it's like to be inside your body now. Just here with your breath, just you. Notice if there's any subtle shifts in the way that you feel. And if the mind wants to jump around, just gently guide it back to your breath. That gentle ebb and flow in and out. And as you sit here, ask yourself a very simple question. What do I need right now? Giving yourself space for whatever emerges in this moment. It could be a feeling, a sensation. It could be words, a sound. It could even be something visual. Just allowing space and quiet. And now another question, asking yourself, what version of me is asking to emerge right now? allowing that space for an answer or just the quiet and sitting in that space of quiet inside your mind. And lastly, ask yourself, is there anything I need to hear from myself right now? Allowing yourself to stay in this space, knowing that there are no right answers, even no answers, even no thoughts or visuals. It's all perfect. Just give yourself a little thank you for taking a moment to be here with you. If it feels good to give yourself a little self hug, I always like that. If it's a deep breath you're wanting, go ahead and take that. If it's a stretch or a movement, just allowing yourself this last few seconds to fill in anything that needs to be filled. Mind, heart, body. And coming back to the space, fluttering your eyes open if they're still closed. So thank you for doing that. Just a very short and simple way that you can do on your own as listeners, anytime, anywhere, really, to just touch in with what is it that you're wanting or needing right now. And the more you practice that, the more the voices come and speak up to what does your body need? What does your heart need? What do you need emotionally? Are there parts that are feeling like they have something to say? And the more familiar you get with that, the more those voices and that intuition and those parts of you speak up, and builds a beautiful relationship with self.
That is beautiful, Elise. So we'll just let people pause with that while we take a break and just be with it. See you in a moment.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Ask. Welcome back to Rooted and Rising. I don't know about you, but I feel refreshed. I feel energized. I feel more joyful. And so thank you, Elise. That was really beautiful. And I hope you take the time to do something like that for yourself, even revisit the episode and even if this segment, and have Elise walk you through this because it was beautiful, and treat yourself. And this is a little beginning of what being is all about. And so again, thank you, Elise.
Yeah, thank you. And Cheri, I have to say that you're always right there with us in the meditations, and I so appreciate it. You have a very quick access to your joy, and you can feel it. So this is like what we all aspire to, is to get to that place where, a 2-minute meditation is going to drop you into a place of joy. That's really, truly what the goal is at the end, to have that.
Yes. So thank you. So, having a little bit of taste of this, I would like, this really doesn't, less is more, and I think that's important right now. When we try to do the being or becoming, we can get trapped into making it kind of a to-do list. And we talk about rest, but a lot of times we just kind of skim over that. We hear it, but we don't really put importance to it. And so I really want to encourage, circling back to the beginning of the episode, of putting importance to this season, time and season, and the marrying yourself with Mother Earth, marrying yourself with the heaven above, and taking notice. And they say, at my stage in life now, and stop and smell the roses, it has a whole different meaning than it did, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, probably 5 years ago. And it's not just, smelling the rose. It's stepping into that timelessness, and getting a little remembering of the timelessness, and nothing is more important than being. And but we can do it simply by smelling a rose, a 2-minute meditation, a phone call to a friend, and just really be present with them. But a hug of yourself. I love the end, just hugging yourself. And another one that I really love, we talk about joy, and I know we've talked about in other episodes, but is the belly laugh. We can sit in a moment, if we have, in the car, we can put our hand on our lower abdomen and we can just start. It could be that simple. And science shows that changes our whole inner system with joy. It's hard not to be joyful when we're laughing, and kids do it all the time to show us the way. And so take this moment and celebrate who you are and what you're all about. And if it's 15 seconds every day, let a small, minute step can do a lot. It creates greatness. We're changing the correct trajectory. They say 1% shift creates massive growth. And so be part of that massive growth. Find your potential and become it by just allowing it to unfold. The miracle of unfolding.
Yeah, so true, Cheri. Thank you. And it is so simple. I love coming back to the simplicity, because we can get so caught up in all the things, even with healing work. And I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but it can be toxic to be obsessed with healing. So check yourself, simplify, slow down, just be. Connecting with yourself is one of the biggest parts of becoming who you want to be, and finding out what your purpose is, what you truly desire. If you don't know what you desire, if you don't know what your purpose is, how can you find joy? How can you? I don't know if it's possible. So really important. And I think the simplifying, giving ourselves permission to just cut out every excess thing and bring it back to the basics, bring it back to connecting with ourselves. Bring it back to being present. And whatever your tools are, listeners, that already work for you, wonderful. Stick with those. You don't have to try 25 new things this week. Stick with the things that you feel are working, and dive deeper into them. Expand on those. You don't have to do all the things all the time. I'm telling myself this too. It's a good reminder for me as well.
And that's how the earth, if you look at the earth, if you go into the core of the earth and layers, it grew by layers, a stage at a time. We don't, you can see the layers of the earth and the formation, and they can see how old, different segments of the earth is. If we think, nature shows us all the time, that take a breath and let it happen.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, I think if possible, maybe we can just if we have time, do a quick recap of what do we want to pull from all the episodes so far. We've talked so much about medicine work. We've talked about different modalities of healing. In this episode, we're kind of doing a new take on New Year's, to not push forward, but sort of have a little stillness to get in touch with us. If there's any messages, again, sorry not to put you on the spot, Cheri, but is there like one message that shines clear and true for you if you kind of wrap and encapsulate all that we've spoken about here, what do you want the listeners to walk away from today with, or walk away from listening to our episodes?
You know, I want them to see that healing is a celebration. You
Mm-hmm.
know, healing happens when we stop resistance or fighting ourselves. I found early this morning when I was getting ready for this episode, my inner critic turned on and I could feel my nervous system getting activated, not in a good way. And I thought, what is happening here? And it was my stinking thinking, again, that monkey brain. And I took a moment. I took a moment and I got still and I did a little meditation and prayer, and I even did my gong because the vibration of the gong, kind of calmed my nervous system down. It got me into my body, and I stopped the fight. And um, and and there was no purpose to the fight. It was just an old pattern of the doing pattern in my case. And so I want you to, we've explored, grief, intuition, our strengths, remembering, essentially recognize that we're on a journey. So we're not broken. You're not broken. We are becoming. We are remembering and returning. I talked about the 7 steps. If you want that roadmap, you can check it out in my book, Heal Your Marriage, Heal Your Trauma, 7 Steps to Rebound and Rise. And it's really the marriage again, is marriage to every aspect of relationships you have in life, to earth, to heaven, to a relationship. It doesn't really matter. It's because we're relational beings. So healing is about remembering and becoming.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautiful. Thank you for that recap. And just to jump on what you said, I also had a similar feeling before our podcast. We're coming back to, a new year. We had a break over the holidays, and I did feel rusty, and I had all these other things going on. And I also took a moment for me that was stepping outside and taking a few deep breaths and just looking at the trees, feeling the earth beneath my feet. And for me, that's a way that I feel really grounded. And so coming back to simplicity, I just want to re-highlight that. What works for you right now? What can you continue? What can you deepen into that you're already doing? Like you said, you're not broken. We're all on this healing journey. So embracing that, embracing your wholeness, the you that currently exists right now, and celebrating that version of you will allow you to continue your growth and self-exploration. So wonderful. And then I always like to close with a few journal prompts. And I think Cheri and I both really rely on journaling as one of our anchors in life. So we can't stress it enough that it's such a great tool for so many people. So if you're inspired to do so, grab your journal. We like to encourage that you take a moment, even if it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you can do. If journaling, if you have a resistance there, set it to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, something, just start somewhere. But the wonderful thing is to write, and don't let your pen leave the page until your timer goes off. And that allows you to kind of access that subconscious of what's really going on underneath. So if you're so inclined, get out your journal at some point, have a few moments to yourself, pause, and maybe one of these resonates with you. If so, you can write it down and just let whatever wants to come out pour out onto the paper. So you can ask yourself, what would support my healing today? You can ask yourself, what would one small and loving action be towards that healing? You can ask yourself, what does starting new mean for me this year? You can ask yourself, how do I want to feel in 2026? That's a great starting off point to understanding the blueprint for how to get you to feeling the way you want to feel in this new year. And this one I just love. What kind of love am I ready to receive and embody in my life? So enjoy those journal prompts. I hope some beautiful words come pouring out of you onto the page, and you're able to get even more in touch with your true self. And I think that wraps it up for us. Do you have anything else to add, Dr. Cheri?
Yes, that's beautiful, and hope that people will, recognize if you're not a journaler, like just be curious about it, because that's where we can speak our truth, and that's where we can get to know, be able to relationship with ourselves. So see it as an interaction with yourself, and the more we know ourselves, and believe you me, we probably know the least about ourselves, far less than we think we do, and how people see us, or usually is different than how we see ourselves. So use your journal as your BFF, and I really encourage you to do it.
Wonderful. Well, until next time, folks, stay rooted
and keep on rising.
This has been Rooted and Rising with hosts Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone. Through honest conversation, clinical insight, and creative reflection, Dr. Cheri and Ellice will empower you to reclaim your voice, your vitality, and your vision. This podcast is not about quick fixes. It's a return to deep knowing, gentle unraveling, and lifelong integration. Tune in each week, Wednesdays, 12 noon Eastern.